Have you ever wondered if there are places in the world where Filipinos are straight up banned from entering? Like completely off limits? It sounds crazy, right? But the truth is, there are countries out there that have put restrictions on Filipinos entering their borders. We're talking about places where safety and political situations are so intense that it's just too risky for Filipinos to visit. In this video, we're going to uncover 5 of these countries, diving deep into the reasons behind these bans and what makes them so dangerous. You absolutely do not want to miss this. First up, we're heading to Afghanistan, a country that's been ravaged by conflict for decades. Danger is a constant threat, and the Philippine government has taken drastic measures to protect its citizens. Imagine walking down the street when suddenly gunfire erupts. That's the reality for many Afghans. There have been countless incidents of kidnappings, bombings, and attacks targeting foreigners. One heartbreaking story was the kidnapping of several Filipino workers in 2007. Ordinary people trying to make a living, their lives turned upside down. The Philippine government issued a total deployment ban to Afghanistan. No Filipinos are allowed to set foot in the country. It's a necessary precaution, but a sobering reminder of the human cost of conflict. Next up on our list is Somalia, a country synonymous with piracy and lawlessness. Imagine a place where heavily armed pirates roam the seas, hijacking ships and holding crews hostage for ransom. It sounds like something out of a movie, but this is the harsh reality off the coast of Somalia. But the dangers in Somalia extend far beyond the open waters. The country has been plagued by civil war and political instability for decades, leaving a power vacuum that has been filled by various armed groups, each vying for control. This has created a climate of fear and uncertainty, making it extremely dangerous for anyone, let alone Filipinos, to travel there. Kidnappings are rampant in Somalia, with foreigners being prime targets. Imagine being snatched from the streets, held captive in an unknown location, and your family back home living in fear, not knowing if they'll ever see you again. It's a terrifying thought, and it's a risk the Philippine government is not willing to take with its citizens. The Philippine government issued a travel warning for Somalia years ago, urging Filipinos to avoid all travel to the country. This warning is not taken lightly. It's a serious matter of personal safety, and it's crucial that Filipinos heed this advice. The situation in Somalia is a complex web of political turmoil, poverty, and violence. It's a place where survival is a daily struggle for many, and the threat of violence is always present. Until there is a significant improvement in the security situation, Somalia will remain a no-go zone for Filipinos. The message is clear. Somalia is not a safe place for Filipinos. The risks are simply too high and the potential consequences are too dire. It's a country to be avoided at all costs. Chapter 3. Sudan. Our journey into the heart of restricted nations takes us now to Sudan, a country scarred by years of civil war and unrest. Imagine a land where violence has become so ingrained in the fabric of society that it's almost impossible to escape its grip. That's the heartbreaking reality in Sudan, a nation grappling with the devastating consequences of prolonged conflict. For decades, Sudan has been torn apart by internal strife, with various factions fighting for control of the country. This has led to widespread human rights abuses, displacement of millions of people, and a complete breakdown of law and order in many parts of the country. The lack of a stable government and the constant threat of violence make it extremely dangerous for foreigners, especially Filipinos, to travel to Sudan. The Philippine government, deeply concerned for the safety of its citizens, has issued a strict deployment ban to Sudan. This ban serves as a stark reminder of the volatile situation and the very real risks involved in traveling to this troubled nation. The ban is a necessary measure to protect Filipinos from the dangers that lurk in Sudan. The country is awash with weapons, and armed groups operate with impunity in many areas. Kidnappings, robberies, and carjackings are commonplace, and foreigners are often targeted. The situation in Sudan is a complex and heartbreaking one. It's a country with a rich history and culture, but one that has been torn apart by conflict. Until there is a lasting peace and a significant improvement in the security situation, Sudan will remain off-limits to Filipinos. The message is clear. Sudan is not a safe place to visit. The risks are simply too high and the potential consequences are too dire. It's a country to be avoided at all costs. Chapter 4, Syria. Our exploration of restricted countries now takes us to Syria, a nation synonymous with a devastating civil war that has raged for over a decade. Imagine a country where bombs rain down from the sky, reducing entire cities to rubble, and where the streets are patrolled by armed groups, their allegiances shifting like the desert sands. That's the tragic reality in Syria, a country shattered by a conflict that has claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands and displaced millions more. The Syrian civil war, which began in 2011, has plunged the country into chaos and created one of the worst humanitarian crises in recent history. The conflict has attracted foreign powers, each backing different sides, further fueling the violence and making a peaceful resolution seem like a distant dream. For Filipinos, Syria is strictly off-limits. The Philippine government, deeply concerned for the safety of its citizens, has issued a total travel ban to the war-torn nation. This ban is not a suggestion, it's a matter of life and death. The risks in Syria are simply too great to ignore. The country is awash with weapons, and indiscriminate attacks on civilians are commonplace. Kidnappings, torture, and extrajudicial killings are rampant, and there is no functioning government to speak of in many areas. Traveling to Syria, even for the most experienced adventurers, is akin to playing Russian roulette with your life. The odds are simply not in your favor, and the potential consequences are too horrific to contemplate. The message is clear. Syria is a no-go zone for Filipinos. The country is far too dangerous, and the risks are simply too high. Until there is a lasting peace and a significant improvement in the security situation, Syria will remain off-limits. Chapter 5, Yemen. Our final destination on this somber journey through restricted countries takes us to Yemen, a nation grappling with a humanitarian catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. Imagine a country where children are starving to death, hospitals are being bombed, and clean water is a luxury few can afford. That's the heartbreaking reality in Yemen, a country ravaged by a brutal civil war that has pushed it to the brink of collapse. The conflict in Yemen, which escalated in 2014, has created one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Millions of people are on the verge of famine, disease is rampant, and the country's infrastructure has been decimated by years of relentless bombing. For Filipinos, Yemen is a no-go zone. The Philippine government, deeply concerned for the safety of its citizens, has issued a strict travel ban to the war-torn nation. This ban is not a suggestion. It's a matter of life and death. The risks in Yemen are simply too great to ignore. The country is awash with weapons, and indiscriminate attacks on civilians are commonplace. Kidnappings, torture, and extrajudicial killings are rampant, and there is no functioning government to speak of in many areas. Traveling to Yemen, even for the most experienced adventurers, is akin to playing Russian roulette with your life. The odds are simply not in your favor, and the potential consequences are too horrific to contemplate. The message is clear. Yemen is a no-go zone for Filipinos. The country is far too dangerous, and the risks are simply too high. Until there is a lasting peace and a significant improvement in the security situation, Yemen will remain off-limits. So there you have it, guys. 5 countries where Filipinos are currently banned from entering, from the war-torn streets of Afghanistan and Somalia to the humanitarian crises in Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. These countries represent some of the most dangerous places on Earth. The reasons for these bans are complex and multifaceted, but they all boil down to one crucial factor: safety. It's a stark reminder that the world can be a dangerous place, and that we must always be aware of the risks involved in traveling to certain regions. Before you book your next adventure, take the time to research your destination thoroughly and check for any travel advisories or restrictions that may be in place. Your safety is paramount, and it's always better to err on the side of caution. What do you guys think about these travel bans? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more eye-opening content. Remember, in mind matters will knowledge truly matter. Stay safe out